God's heart. And I think that it's really critical that we as the church understand how to address this topic. Whatever country you're in, wherever you live, this is going to affect you. Maybe not directly, but it's certainly something in society that I just think that collectively it affects us all. And that topic is abortion. And it is one of the most divisive and at times impassioned topics. But we have to be able to address this in a way that is godly, with truth and with grace, the way Jesus came. And I think conversations like this will help you. So today's guest had to confront this very directly, and you're going to hear his story. His name is Steve Karlen. He's got a book out now that's called This Is When We Begin to Fight, and you're going to hear his story. Chat is open, so Spring, if you have a question, load it on up. If you have questions for today's guest, you can throw them out there as well. I'll pass them on, the good ones. And but we just have to, well, we're going to learn, and I think that's the first step to being able to address this topic. Steve, good to have you on Life Today Live. Appreciate you being with us.
Great to be here. Thank you so very much for having me.
All right, so I'm going to show the book again because it says a family's battle against late-term abortion, academia, and miscarriage at home. Man, you pick up your story wherever you want to pick it up, and we're gonna learn from you, and then we'll talk about some of the more kind of topical things, but pick it up with your personal story.
Sure. Like so many people, I think perhaps even most Americans, I've been pro-life my entire life. There's not a point in my life where I ever considered myself anything other than pro-life, but also like so many Americans, for much of my life, I never did anything about it. And I don't know if that's because I was lazy. Maybe it's because I didn't know what I could do to make a difference. Certainly I tried to vote pro-life, maybe, send a check to the local pregnancy center from time to time, but I didn't really know what I could do to make a difference. And my lack of involvement really began to change, as it does for so many, with a personal encounter with the crisis of abortion. My wife and I were newlyweds, and we were living in Chicago. And I was on my way to work one morning, and I got a text message from my wife, Laura. And it should have been my first sign that something was wrong. She never sends text messages. But she was texting me to let me know that one of her coworkers, a young woman with whom she worked very closely every day, this young woman came into the office and announced that she was pregnant. But she said, "Don't worry, I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to get an abortion." And my wife at this time was not actually pro-life herself. She would have at the time described herself as pro-choice, not because she was militantly or radically pro-abortion by any means, but she had simply never come face to face with the crisis of abortion. But here in her coworker, she was for that first time face to face with the crisis of abortion. So she had an instant conversion, and the two of us kind of put our heads together and we came up with a plan. And that plan was my wife, Laura, offered to invite her coworker to move in with us and live with us rent-free so she could kind of escape the pressure she was getting from her ex-boyfriend, the father of this child, who was pressuring her very intensely to have an abortion. Laura offered financial support, and Laura even offered to adopt the baby, if that's what it would take to give her the courage that she needed to choose life. And it made a difference. We hear that of women who have had abortions, somewhere in the neighborhood of 80% of them say if one person had reached out and encouraged them to choose life, that they would have done so. And so for my wife and me, we had the opportunity to be that one person. And my wife's coworker went from looking up the names of abortion providers to looking up the names of babies. She decided she would choose life and she would parent her child. And I mean, we were so delighted. We were thrilled by this life saved. And we scheduled a dinner with Angela one Friday evening in downtown Chicago. And we got to the restaurant and she never showed. And we thought, you know what? She's pregnant. Maybe she's not feeling well, or maybe we had some confusion on the date and time. But it turns out, we found out 2 days later that while we were waiting for her at this restaurant, she was having an abortion. She had been able to withstand the pressure she got from her boyfriend, from her coworkers, even from her own family. But when her doctor pressured her into an abortion, that's what broke her. She gave in. She had the abortion. And now, she was brokenhearted. She's never been the same since then. And so that was really a wake-up call for me. We hear so often that this is a women's issue. Men have no voice. But this was an opportunity where I realized I couldn't just sit on the sidelines and watch football and vote every 2 years or every 4 years. I had to do something, roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty a little bit and try to come and serve and protect these women and children who are really vulnerable and at risk to an abortion industry that is nothing less than predatory. So I got involved, and one thing led to another, and the Lord had a lot in store for us.
I bet so. And okay, so there's a lot of things that you touched on that I just want to discuss. And Janet, if you'll hang with us, I promise we will get to your point as well online. So when we talk about doing something about abortion, it can't just be pressuring people to do something they don't want to do, right? So how do you approach that woman who is, I mean, you're in some ways you're suggesting you raise a child that you're not able to raise, perhaps. How do we do that without just pressuring people into more difficult situations?
Yeah, I think it sort of goes back to that statistic I referenced a little bit ago, that of women who have had abortions, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 out of 5 of them say they would have chosen life if someone had encouraged them. And when we hear about abortion as perhaps a political talking point, it's always couched in, women have the right to choose, the right to do what they want with their own bodies. And the fact of the matter is that abortion is a choice that nobody wants. Nobody looks forward to getting an abortion. And so often it's the mere presence of someone, whether it's a friend or a family member, or at 40 Days for Life, we go out and for 40 days at a time, we stand on a sidewalk in front of abortion facilities and we offer help. Many of our leaders and our volunteers, they hold signs that simply say, "We will help you." And it's not always that they don't want to have their baby, it's that they don't know how to. And if we can connect them with the resources that they need, it's a happy ending for everybody.
Yeah, okay, so now that's interesting because my reflexive answer would be to the, you have the right to do whatever you want with your own body. It's not your body we're talking about here. There's another body involved, and that it's true. But your approach of saying, "Hey, how can we help you?" I think that's much more effective. Are you seeing that by offering help instead of an argument, that it actually goes further with people who are in the situation?
It does. I think we need to have those arguments. And from a perspective of justice, you're absolutely 100% right. We should be on college campuses talking about it. We should be in the media talking about it. We should be talking about it in the public square in every sense. But a woman who is pregnant and does not consider that good news, it really triggers a fight or flight response. And you end up with pressured decisions that can't be unmade. And it's particularly dangerous when you have an abortion industry that, as I said, is predatory, is not giving you all options counseling. They're there to sell abortions and pocket a fistful of cash. And so what we found is if we can meet a woman where she is and help her and provide for her needs, that's very scriptural. But when we can do that, in many cases, sort of the intellectual level, the conversion of the matter of abortion is unjust for the baby, that comes second in many cases.
I think you're right. We need to approach it on both fronts. And I'm gonna call somebody out. I don't normally do this, but Kevin, God love you. I just think that's the wrong response. And I'm gonna read this. I want to read this because I think this really exemplifies what we go through when we start talking about this topic. So Janet says, God gave us a choice to do what we want to do. He doesn't make us follow him, nor should our country. It shouldn't be against the law to have an abortion. Okay, so and that is an argument that we hear, is that it shouldn't be a legal matter. It should be something that people choose, even if it's wrong. And so now Kevin comes back and says, so in your eyes, Janet, murder should be legal. Obviously, you don't know God. Now, Kevin, please hear me. I've been there. I have probably said those exact words. And Janet raises an interesting point from a legal standpoint because, we would say, you look at like Nevada, I think prostitution is terrible. Obviously, it's sin from a biblical sense, but yet they don't outlaw it. And should we? I was just in Colorado recently, and they legalized marijuana, and I think that's a terrible idea. But how do we address? Okay, 2 points to Janet's argument that just because it's wrong doesn't mean it should be illegal. How do you respond to that? And then to Kevin's, you don't know God kind of response. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, you sort of hear this statement that's thrown around from time to time that we can't legislate morality, but really that's what our laws do. The most important laws that we have. You can't steal. We could say stealing is a choice. We could say, as Kevin did, that, is murder just a choice then? And what we really ought to have as a just society is civil laws and criminal laws that reflect and respect the natural moral law as established by God. And so if we're going to protect somebody on one side of the birth canal, it only seems to me to be fair as a matter of justice and equality that we're protecting them on the other side of the birth canal. I don't think there's anything so magical about passage through that birth canal that you suddenly gain the rights associated with personhood. So I think, we've had a long and bitter history in our country of cases where we were trying to sort of wholesale strip a category of human beings of their rights as human beings, whether it be the slaves or the Native Americans. This is nothing new. Abortion is one more instance of dehumanization. As far as Randy's comment, I agree with the first part. Abortion, I don't think, is any different than murdering a child or an adult who is older or beyond birth. But I also think we need to be very careful to sort of make those judgments. We don't necessarily know people's level of knowledge of the abortion crisis. We don't know. There's so many things that could be affecting them. So I think it's important for us to speak the truth and to speak it in charity and within an understanding of goodwill. And hopefully we're all coming from that position of goodwill.
Yeah, and a great answer, actually. Like I said at the beginning, the Scripture says that in John that Jesus came with grace and truth, and I think the order of that helps. We got to come with grace in order for someone to hear the truth. But you're 100% right. In order to take the lives of children in the womb the way that we do, freely, legally, almost celebratory in some quarters, you have to dehumanize that individual. You have to basically say they're not human. All right, I enjoy the mental exercise of what we call debate, and as long as we do it in a healthy way, I think it is healthy. I want to jump back to your book. This is Steve Karlen's book. This is When We Begin to Fight. You mentioned a miscarriage at home. How has that shaped how you view abortion and how you actually get out there and do something about it?
Yeah, it was really a painful thing because we got into, after I shared the story of how I got involved in pro-life activism earlier, and we dove headfirst in, and we were blessed to be part of this 40 Days for Life movement that was saving tons of babies around the world, and certainly plenty of babies in my hometown of Madison, Wisconsin. But we were struggling to save our own babies from miscarriage. My wife has a health condition that makes it very difficult for her to bring a child to full term. And so it was an interesting thing because you would sometimes hear pro-abortion talking points say, well, pro-lifers don't really believe that the unborn child is a human being because you don't see them grieving their miscarriages. And I just kind of had to scratch my head and say, you might not know the people that I know. Everyone that I know has suffered from a miscarriage. And in fact, even Planned Parenthood will market on its website their chemical abortions, the abortion pills. And why would someone want to have a chemical abortion instead of a surgical abortion? They say, well, it feels more natural, like a miscarriage. And as I watched my sobbing wife deliver the body of our miscarried babies, I thought, what kind of message would use miscarriage as a selling point? So it's absurd. And I think, certainly everybody handles miscarriage differently. So many have been through it. Some are very private. We chose to be a little bit more open about it and really recognize and share our miscarriage journey publicly, because I think it's an important part of the healing process to recognize that these are human beings. They are our children. We hope to meet them in heaven someday, and their lives deserve to be recognized just as much as anyone else's. And I think it shows what an integrated issue life is, whether it's a born human being, an unborn child in danger of abortion, or a child who's wanted that's been lost in miscarriage, all created in that image and likeness of God.
Yeah, and I fortunately, my wife and I didn't face that, but I have close family members who did, and it is painful. It is. We mourned and actually had a funeral because you can see that child is a child. Connie, I think 100% share scriptures about God knowing us before we were born is a wonderful idea if that person will hear the message. God's truth is the highest truth, and so it's always effective. Okay, I got distracted by some of the chat here. You mentioned that you are active in 40 Days for Life, and I want to show the website because I want people to understand what that is. This is the book at the website, but the homepage for the website is here. And you guys, you mentioned standing on sidewalks, and Sean Carney has been on the program before, and he's the head of this. When you get involved in the marketplace, in public, and you're being public about your experiences and putting a book out and things like that, you can kind of make yourself a little bit of a target. How has it changed your life to be actively pro-life, not just personally pro-life?
Yeah, I think it's humbling in a sense. We have this culture that is completely dominated by power politics. And if you can get the power to do it through the legislatures, through the presidency, through the governors, through the courts, you can ram through whatever you want, good or evil. And when we go out and we pray in front of an abortion facility for these moms, we really recognize how little we are and how much we need God's grace. Because I think there was a while when I was brand new involved, I thought, we're going to win this through superior talking points and clever marketing. We're going to change hearts. We're going to win elections. And we're just going to kind of over time steamroll the culture of death. And that's not the experience when you go pray in front of an abortion facility, because you go and you pray with all your heart and you want to just throw yourself in front of those doors and stop that mom from going in and nurture her and love on her and help her save her baby. And in reality, that happens a lot. But more often than that happens, the mom walks in and has the abortion, and 2 or 3 hours later, you see her walking out of that abortion facility sobbing, in many cases limping, physically, emotionally, and spiritually wounded. So I think that requires a great trust in God's grace and mercy, that He's going to put you out there. And, sometimes you save a baby, but many times you don't. And as our Lord says, blessed are those who have not seen, but who have believed.
Yeah. What do you say to the woman who has had an abortion and maybe be regretting it now?
Yeah, I would say there is hope, there is mercy, there is forgiveness. I think one of the things that has really been a struggle in this movement to reach women who have had the experience, or a man who's had the experience of abortion, is in many cases it's something that's kept silent in our churches because pastors are reluctant. They don't want to offend, or they don't want to scare off women and men who have had an abortion in their past. And what we have found is that it's actually just the opposite. It's the silence that leads these women and men to feel condemned. And when we talk about God's grace, His mercy, that this is a sin that is forgivable and that the Lord longs to forgive them and heal them, there've been large stretches of the 40 Days for Life history where we've got 40 Days for Life vigils in front of abortion facilities in hundreds of cities worldwide. And oftentimes it's between a quarter of our leaders and a third who have an abortion in the past, and they've found healing and they're looking to bring it to others.
Yeah, boy, that's tough. Yeah. I have in my arguing, come out with some strong statements against abortion, and then found out that someone that I was talking to had one, and it sounded like condemnation on my part when it wasn't intended to be. And so I think it's critical that we're aware that a lot of women have had an abortion, and what they need is not to be told how wrong it was, but like you said, the hope that God does offer for restoration. I do think we need to be clear that it is wrong, but again, man, grace and truth, and it just requires being led by the Spirit so much. Two times you have made reference to abortion impacting men. And if you watch the news for any period of time over the last 20 years or something, when it comes to the abortion issue, men are largely told to just to butt out, because you're not the one carrying the baby, you're not the one having to make the decision. What do you see the right role of men being? Because God knows a woman can't get pregnant on her own. It takes two to tango. So, what should men do when it comes to abortion?
Yeah, I think men need to speak out. And we talked to so many women who have abortions and they were dying for their husband or their boyfriend or whoever it is that's the father of the child to man up and take responsibility for that child and protect and provide. And so at the first, most basic level, we need men to recognize their role as fathers. When they become a father, they become a father. And let's not shirk our responsibility and go back to playing video games. It's time to carry out our responsibilities, whether that's a planned child, unplanned, disabled, doesn't matter. All of the reasons that are there for an abortion, men can really step up to the plate and serve the mothers and the children. But I think we also need men, just at a general level, to step out into the culture. We're so often told we have no voice, and we've got now close to 50 years of seeing what that looks like. It looks like broken families, broken hearts, broken lives. Abortion right now in our world is a leading cause of death. In fact, more lives lost to abortion annually in our world than by all other causes of death combined. And so one of the reasons I wrote the book is because I was blessed to have the opportunity to be called to a leadership position not long after I got involved. My alma mater, the University of Wisconsin, was about to unveil secret plans to open up a late-term abortion facility on the college campus of my alma mater.
Jeez.
And that's a case where it can't just be women, it can't just be men. We're meant for each other, and we can be serving alongside each other.
Yeah, 100%. Now, where do you get your numbers on the number of abortions that take place in this country? Because I know there's some disagreement, some debate about that.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to come up because there's a huge range of estimates. It's fairly well established or agreed upon that there are 42 million lives lost to all other causes of death worldwide, the heart disease, the cancer, all of those sorts of things. And the range on the number of abortions worldwide, it's somewhat difficult to come by, even in the United States, because different states report different numbers,
Right.
surveys, and different countries. Like we have, I think, I shudder to think when communist China falls and we find out the true horrors and atrocities that have been taking place in that country for the last number of decades. No one knows how many there, but that's in the tens of millions a year. So a range of 42 to 56 million lives lost worldwide to abortion. And that just comes from aggregating the data that individual countries put out and also surveying and polling organizations.
What about in the U.S.? Because I know what Planned Parenthood reports one number, but I think that's suspect. Do you know what the latest or most recent numbers would be in the U.S.?
In recent years, it's been around 1 million a year, which stunningly is progress from the 90s and the 80s, where we were seeing, 1.5, upwards of close to 2 million lives lost to abortion annually. Again, these numbers, I don't know that there's an official number, but the best that the statisticians and the data people have been able to come up with is right now about 1 million a year.
Unbelievable. I mean, you look at what we've gone through because of COVID, and we're at a third of that almost, and we've turned the entire country upside down. I mean, turned people's lives upside down. But yet anyway, okay. I'm going to show the book. Here it is. This is when we begin to fight. And Steve Karlen, you mentioned, you referred to some things, and someone in the chat, Connie, by the way, Connie, God bless you. I'm an adoptee, so I appreciate you adopting your little one. You hear this ridiculous, just made up charge that, oh, well, pro-life people, they only care about children being born. Then they don't care about them, which is the stupidest, most historically bereft response ever. But when you look at what the church has done, and I know you're Catholic, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You guys have been fabulous with adoption agencies, with hospitals. I know Protestant, there's Baptist hospital, Methodist hospital, Presbyterian hospitals. There's churches of every denomination that support or run homes for unwed mothers, adoption services, and things like that. How critical is it that we do those sorts of things so that the young woman who cannot raise a child has another option other than abortion, which is adoption?
Yeah, it is critical, and it's already going on, and that's why those attacks that you referenced are so patently dishonest, because we have at least 3 times as many volunteer-led, donor-supported pregnancy health centers in our country than we do abortion facilities.
Wow.
In some cases, it's 5 or 6 times as many pregnancy health centers. And again, Planned Parenthood they've got huge corporate foundations. They're charging for their services. They've got massive, more than $500 million tax subsidy each and every single year. These pregnancy centers don't have that. These are people of faith from all different faith traditions that are giving up their time, their talent, and their treasure, their financial resources to serve a woman in need. So I think that attack line is one of the most dishonest that there are, because there have been people from, again, across the body of Christ who have really stepped up to the plate and made resources available that are incredible.
How in the world do abortion services get federal dollars and adoption services don't? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, some adoption services do, but now we see more and more strings attached. Where if you're not willing to, offer an adoption to a family, a so-called family of two dads, two moms, or
Yeah.
some other bizarre assortment of them, a lot of strings attached. But as far as abortion funding, it becomes pretty simple. You write a campaign check, and then that guy gets elected, and then you get your check right back from the courtesy of the U.S.
Yeah.
taxpayer. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of money being exchanged, changing hands during this process.
What do you think that'll increase? Do you think that'll increase under the Biden I'm sorry, President Biden?
It would be hard to see it going any other way, but fortunately, one of the things that's positive is that the states have more authority than ever to yank state funding of Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers. So that is good.
That's a
news.
great point. Yeah, no, that's a great point. All right, and I want to cap this thing with the most effective thing for ordinary people that are watching this right now, to do. Obviously, we can vote every 2-4 years for a pro-life candidate. I wouldn't vote for anything else, frankly. But what else can just the average person do? What do you think the best thing for them to do is to step up and to help those who are in a tough pregnancy, and also to eradicate, abortion as best we can from whatever country we're in?
Well, we've talked about some of them. Certainly go to 40daysforlife.com and sign up to pray in front of your local abortion facility. Former abortion workers report that when someone is out there on the sidewalk, upwards of 3 out of every 4 abortion appointments that the woman no-shows for, so that's powerful. We've talked about the pregnancy help resources and adoption resources. I think something that gets flies under the radar a little bit from time to time is just having the discussion. If you look at abortion law in the United States, it is one of the most extreme in the world, right alongside countries like China and North Korea, not a list that we want to be on. And you would think that, well, we've lost the debate over abortion, but I would suggest that it's actually that we've never had the opportunity to have the discussion. Most people, and that's why earlier I suggested perhaps, assuming that Janet was coming from a place of goodwill when we disagreed with her point. In many cases, it's simply people don't know the true reality. They don't know what abortion is. They don't know the facts about fetal development, how abortion works, that it is as prevalent as it is. And I think it was President Reagan said that all meaningful change in America starts around the dinner table. We need to not be afraid to have hard conversations that may offend people. We can have them in charity. They don't need to be fighting or confrontational, but we need to be willing to step up and make the case for life to our friends, our family members, our coworkers, our neighbors, the people we go to school with, and the people we go to church with.
Absolutely. I do think that's important. And again, I'm going to stress the point of grace, because we have to do it in a way that's not just unnecessarily offensive. It's going to be offensive on a level to some people. I understand that. You're not going to get around that. But we don't have to purposely give offense in making the points, because the crazy thing is, not only is God on our side, but science is on our side. And, all we have to do is just tell people the truth. Steve, anything you want to add before I let you go? I sure appreciate you. I appreciate what you guys are doing at 40 Days for Life. I put the URL in the chat. Anything you want that we just need to walk away with?
Sure. I would just say, if you don't mind me making one last plug for the book,
Yep.
I mentioned the university that I went to trying to open up a late-term abortion facility. And that really led to kind of the key plot of the book, which is this grassroots band of volunteers. We had no money, we had no political clout, we had nothing going for us. But we decided to take on the most influential organization in our state, the University of Wisconsin. And the Lord loves to win with insufficient means. So whether you get the book or not, I hope the watchers, the viewers, the listeners do. But I would encourage everyone to just stop and consider that the Lord doesn't need all of those worldly indicators of success. He can use any of us where we are and change the world. And he loves to do so, because then it's he who gets the glory and not the designs of man.
Oh, boy, man, that is so true. I appreciate you saying that. Thanks again, Steve, and I'll show the book here at the end. You guys go pick that up. Maybe just get you some ideas, give you a little motivation, maybe give you some good, healthy arguments that you can make. But really, we have to stand up for life. That's just we have to do that. So anyway, Steve, again, thank you. Appreciate the conversation, the lively conversation in chat. You guys watching and anybody watching in the replay, be sure to join us again next time here on Life Today Live. We're live at noon Central, and if you haven't followed or subscribed to Life Today TV, wherever you're watching this, do that now so you get the notifications for more great interviews. And we will see you next time right here on Life Today Live.